Good morning, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works workshop. And just off camera here that you can't see, we've got a visitor in the shop. Charlie Herbst is here. And I don't know if Charlie wants to be on camera or not, but I stuck him over there in the corner for the moment. We have a power-packed shop talk for you this morning. This one, I absolutely guarantee you will either love it or you will hate it. There won't be very much room in the middle. But it's some of these firmly held beliefs that I have, and I'm just going to lay them out there. I've been ignoring several comments for years, just because I just didn't want to hassle with it. But I've decided I'm not going to ignore them anymore. I'm going to throw it out here and let you all think about some things. I think you're going to find out some things this morning that you just never would have thought about, especially in terms of setup on instruments. But let me go through a few of the topics that I have here to cover. I'm going to talk about staining that quilted maple mandolin. People have been asking about that. There's been a lot of comments on that. Going to talk about some Texas ebony that someone sent to me. I'll show you a little bit of that here if I can find it again. I think I know where it is. I'm real prepared, as you can tell. I'm going to talk to you or show you a little bit about a Carmine D'Amico mandolin, which is a mandolin that I built for Carmine D'Amico, and he's a famous fellow, and I'll tell you about that a little bit later. Got another couple of new tools to show you and a couple of modifications to tools that I'll show you. Got a shout out to a little viewer friend out there. If we have time after all this other stuff, I'm going to talk about different types of woods and why they're used, where they're used. And let's see, I'm also going to hit on the Dremel-Proxon debate again. And then I'm also going to talk about that Haman Guitar video and Caleb's comments that came in on that. So we've got a lot to cover here. The very first thing I'm going to cover is the shout out to my youngest viewer out there. This is a faithful viewer. She's 2 years old. As you can see there on the screen, she's holding a guitar. And her name is... I don't know what her name is. Alea Rose Widner. I don't know if I'm saying Alea right or not, but she doesn't go by that. She goes by Tadpole. Nobody knows her real name. In fact, I had to ask what her real name was. Everyone calls her Tadpole. So how do I know this young lady and how do I know she watches? She happens to be Melissa's granddaughter. Melissa says that she wakes her up all the time because she gets the phone and she can hear the theme song to my videos kicking off. Well, all I can say is she's got good taste. That much I can tell you. I love her middle name, Rose, for obvious reasons, since I use a rose as a logo. And would you not know, the shout out I did last weekend to Caleb's grandmother, her middle name is Rose as well. So isn't that funny? 2 shout outs in a row, both of them with the middle name Rose. So if you want me to do a shout out to someone you know with the middle name Rose, just send it my way. Those are the only ones we do. We don't do shout outs to anybody else. Okay, let's see. First of all, my first topic here is about the staining of the quilted maple. Many comments came in that says, do not stain that maple, leave it, white. And, that is a pretty look when you do leave them white. There's no doubt about that. And some people said that, you're covering up the grain if you stain it, and in my opinion, it's exactly opposite. You're not seeing all the grain unless you stain it. The stain penetrates down in there, brings out the depth, and it shows you the ups and downs, the highlights, and things like that. But there's a real reason why you almost have to stain an F-style mandolin, and that is because around the edges. The edging on these F-style mandolins is so complicated that I don't care how perfect you do it. There's always little minor gaps and things, and that's why Gibson started it, I'm sure, making them all sunburst and darkening the edges, because it's just almost impossible to make them perfect. Now, don't get me wrong, I have seen blonde F-style mandolins, but they are few and far between, and I will say that this one would be a candidate because it's actually as perfect as you can be so far. Now, I haven't put the binding on it yet, so that's when you know whether it's perfect or not. But I have already stained it, so I'm disappointing some folks out there. I just wanted to let you know, be prepared. It is stained. The good news is, oh my goodness, you won't believe how pretty it's turning out. It's really got some color, and it's really got some flame going on and texture, and it's so book matched. It's 10 times more book matched than I ever thought it would be. So if you're liking that mandolin build video, you're going to really like the way this thing is turning out, I think. Let's see. The next thing I was going to talk about is the Texas Ebony, and I believe I have it right over here. Now, Texas Ebony is something I was absolutely not familiar with at all. I looked it up, and I'm sure you can Google it too, and apparently it is a thing. And, apparently it's a fairly small tree. It kind of reminds me of our hedge apple up here, the Osage orange, that yellow wood that you see me use all the time. It kind of reminds me of that from the description. Very hard, very dense. This is what it looks like. Try to hold it up there. Again, it's not on autofocus, so it's not going to focus very good if I move it up very close. But anyway, it is just it kind of looks a little bit like a cross between walnut and rosewood or something. I mean, if I was trying to figure out what to tell you it looks like. But anyway, this sample was sent to me by Leonard Ziegenmeyer. So Leonard, thank you very much. Leonard is in, looks like Imlay City, Michigan, if I'm not mistaken there. And let's see here. I think he might have sent me, yeah. Yeah, he just said that these were for knife scales, is all he added in here. So I just thought I'd show that to you and let you know that there is such a thing as Texas Ebony. I don't think, as far as grain texture-wise, it doesn't seem to be as, tightly grained or tightly textured as ebony, as the common ebony or regular ebony, whatever you want to call it. While I'm doing show and tell, I'll show you a new tool that I've bought, and we really haven't even tried this out at all yet. I just happened to see it when I was searching for something else, and it looked like it might be a real good neck removal tool. This is a foam cutter, actually. It heats up. You can regulate the temperature here, and it cuts foam. But I thought, well, if it heats up like that, and apparently it gets pretty hot, then we ought to be able to put it down in that hole that we drill when we are taking necks off guitars, and that ought to heat it up. And even if we pour water in there and then put this in there and steam it, whatever. So this is not proven yet, but I thought this looked like it had potential, so I bought it. It was relatively inexpensive, around 20 bucks. So we'll see how that goes. I think I got that off of Amazon. Let's see here. The next thing, improving tools. I'll just show you a clip here. I prepared a clip about that knife oven that Carlos sent to me, so here's that clip. My friends, I think I showed you last week the little knife oven that was sent to me by Carlos. It's really a nice little deal. I told you that that oven didn't have a way to regulate the temperature. It was just completely hot, and we put knives in there and it would actually scorch the wood, and I don't really want it quite that hot. I want it close to that hot. So I bought a temperature controller, and here it is. Let's just point the camera down so you can see what we're talking about here. The temperature controller, you may be able to see, says 512 degrees right now. I'm getting a pretty big discrepancy between the temperature controller and the temperature that the knife, or that this thing says. Like this says 373 degrees right now is what I'm getting on that. 367. I don't know why there's such a big discrepancy. They're both in Fahrenheit. All we know is we've turned this up quite a bit more, and we still have some more room. We can go up to about 570 degrees or so with this. So I've got this set to kick on at 475 degrees and kick off at 500 degrees right now. So anyway, you can just set your knives in here, which is really nice. The way I adapted this is that it needed a probe going in here, so maybe you can see it. It's a little bit warm to hold here, but maybe you can see how I just adapted the probe to go into the end there. I put that little metal plate on there, drilled a hole through it to just hold the probe, and then it's just stuck inside there where the knives are. Yeah, that took a little bit of space there for knives, but you can still easily get 3 or 4 knives in here, and that's more than adequate. So I've got 3 knives in there right now, as you can probably tell. I could easily get one more in there, I'm sure, if I needed to. But the point is that heat up the knives, and we can also have then the bridge heater that I already made heating up, like say the bridge, and then we can reach over and take the knife and poke it under the bridge then to lift it up, or the fingerboard, or whatever we're working on. So this little deal here was not expensive. I'll try to put a link in the video eventually about where you can get this if you are interested in one of these. It seems like a really well-made unit. I still don't know, though, exactly why we're here seeing such a temperature difference between the probe and the knives. It's roughly at least 100-degree difference. Anyway, we just set it hotter, and then the knives get to the temperature we're looking for. So the knives are well over 300 degrees, so I think that's pretty close to where they need to be. So once again, I say thank you to Carlos. I really do appreciate it, Carlos. This is going to be a very welcome addition. Well, I hope the network's not breaking up the audio too much. I noticed that it was breaking up a little bit here as I watched that myself. We are going to talk about a couple of more things here before we get into the real meat. The next thing I want to just briefly talk about, I don't have any photographs or anything here for this, but the Dremel versus the Proxxon. You know, I had been using the Dremel tool, and I had a problem in one video, and people laid it off that the Dremel was a cheap tool, it was a toy, it wasn't a professional tool, that I should get a Proxxon. So I did exactly that. I went and bought a Proxxon. And then I did a review of those two tools. It's probably been at least 6 months ago, probably longer than that. And in my opinion, the Dremel came out far superior to the Proxxon. And in fact, there's really almost no comparison in terms of power, in terms of speed, torque, holding ability, anything you want to compare it with, except the sound. And there's a good reason for that. Except for the sound, the Dremel came out on top on every single issue, at least in that review. Now that I've used it for another 6 to 8 or 10 months, I will stand by everything I said and then some. The Proxxon is a great little router, don't get me wrong. I'm not really knocking the Proxxon, but when you're doing a direct comparison, the Dremel 4000 now I'm not saying every Dremel. Be sure you understand, I'm talking the Dremel model 4000 outperforms the Proxxon 7 ways to Sunday. I mean, just no comparison. And so if you're really needing a powerful tool, the Proxxon is not where it's at. The Proxxon only goes up to 20,000 RPM. The Dremel goes up to like 30, 35,000. I don't recall offhand, but much faster, which is why it's much louder too, or part of the reason. Although the brushes and the difference in the technology there is part of the reason for the sound. But other than the sound, I stand by every single thing I said in that video and then some. Now, there has been the reason I even bring that up is because there has been some comments come in lately, and they, basically said I didn't know what I was talking about. Well, I do know what I'm talking about. I use them every day. If you don't have both of them there to compare, then perhaps you don't know what you're talking about, because anybody that compares the two will come to the same conclusion, I guarantee you. So I just wanted to bring that out and throw it out there and tell you that I stand by it 100%, and I guarantee you the Dremel 4000 will outdo the Proxxon all the way around. I have, let me look here and make sure I'm not missing something. I'm going to talk about the Haman guitar a little bit. Poor Caleb got nailed a little bit on the Haman guitar because he didn't bother to straighten the fretboard before he did the fret job. And first of all, I'm going to come to his defense, and then we're going to talk about fret jobs, and I'm going to tell you some things you just don't know about fret jobs. And I mean flat, you don't know. And even I saw a comment just a moment ago by Chicken Lickin', and I'll bet you $5,000 Chicken Lickin' don't know this. That's what I'll bet you. Because his comment is saying that it was just so wrong to do a fret job without leveling the fretboard first. But I'm going to tell you something that will open your eyes. But first, let's come to Caleb's defense just a little bit. How many of you could withstand the scrutiny of having thousands and thousands and thousands, even perhaps a million people at this point, watch your videos and watch every single thing you do and not come out unscathed? How many of you could do that? I doubt a single one of you could. Now, multiply that factor by the fact that when he walked through the door like 6 months ago, he didn't even know how to turn on the drill press. I mean, he had no experience with a drill press. He had no experience with a bandsaw. He had no experience with a single shop tool. Now, look where he's come in 6 months. I would trust him with my best guitar. I can just tell you that right up front. There's nothing, there's no more. I don't need to say any more. I mean, nobody could withstand that kind of scrutiny. And so, the fact that he didn't straighten level the fretboard first before he did the fret job, yeah, he knows that now, obviously, and with all the comments and stuff, I almost didn't let the video go out because of that, and that's the truth. I almost said, no, let's don't put that video out because he's just going to get reamed, and I knew he would. And of course, some of you didn't let me down. Many of you, though, most of you, came to his defense and had made very nice comments. And the bottom line is, the way I look at it is, it's a shame when you can do everything wrong and yet you get 100% perfection at the end. I mean, it's just terrible when that happens. So that's enough on Caleb's defense. Now I'm going to talk to you about fret jobs, and this is going to make some of you so mad, and I don't care. It's time to get it out here and let you get mad, because you just don't know this, and you're not doing the math. The rest of you that don't have a clue about doing a fret job, just the math will tell you I'm right. So, I don't have to prove any of this. The math will tell you I'm right. Okay, so now we can talk about any fret job. It can be the Haman if you want to use that as the example. But I'm going to go to an example of a 1967 Martin guitar that you're going to get to see in the not too distant future, and it's going to be one that I'm going to do. Not because it's such a relic or anything, it's just that I know it needs a bunch of major surgeries, and I know how to do each one of them, and I can do them really fast, and I can probably, even though Caleb could do it perfectly, I am 100% convinced he could, I could do them much faster than Caleb can do it, and that'll save the customer a lot of money, and that's the reason I'm going to do it. So what does it need? Well, this 1967 Martin guitar, it has the most underbow in the neck of any Martin guitar I have ever seen, or at least as much as any I have ever seen. Now, it has the non-adjustable truss rod, and the underbow is just, it looks like a ski ramp to my eye. So then I thought, well, let me measure that and see just how bad that really is. Okay, now keep in mind, this is the worst one I've ever seen. 43 thousandths of an inch was the underbow. And some of you will go, wow, that's a lot. And others of you will go, well, that's not very much. And it's not. 43 thousandths of an inch, folks, is less than a 16th of an inch, and you're talking over 20 inches in length, okay? 40 thousandths of an inch is 1 millimeter. That might put it in better perspective. It's 1 millimeter over 20 inches in length. Okay? That's the worst one I've seen. Okay? So, what does that tell you right there? Well, first of all, it's not a huge underbow. It's not like this. When you don't level the fretboard, it's not this. It's just barely anything. The next point. I use a 6-inch fret file for a real, distinct, absolute, 100% reason. It's not that I can't afford one of those long fret files. I wouldn't use one of those if you sent me a truckload of them, free. I would just find a different purpose for every one of them. This is what I use, and I use it for a reason. And even though I get all these comments that I should be using a long fret file and I should be using, this and that, and I need one that has the crown in it, and I need all these things. I use this for a specific reason, and here's the math in it. Now, if this doesn't prove it to you why this is better than the long one, I don't know how to prove it to you. All right. Now, we went to the worst one. That's 40 thousandths, which is about, 6 or 8, maybe 8 or 10 sheets of notebook paper, 8 sheets of notebook paper at the most, something like that. 10 human hairs. That's all we're talking, and that's the worst. The normal is maybe, when it's bad, the normal is maybe 15 thousandths, 20 thousandths. That's 4, 5 human hairs. Lay 4 or 5 human hairs together on a table and put them right next to each other and see how much space we're talking. Not much. And that's over a 20-inch length. How much difference is it going to make if you take a 6-inch file and you're rubbing it over that? How much of that underbow is in that 6 inches? Practically none. Practically none. A thousandth or two, a couple of thousandths of an inch. Do the math. I mean, it's not going to be much. Over 6 inches. When you got 20 inches of length there that the underbow looking at. Now, granted, nobody's going to tell you, and I'm not going to tell you, that it's not better to go ahead and flatten the fretboard first. I agree, it is better. There's no question about it. But even if you don't flatten it, how much are you going to be off in a 6-inch space? Not very much, because they don't go like this. They just barely have any underbow in them over a 20-inch length. And even if you have 10 or 12 thousandths relief, which is what, once you get it up to the 10 or 12 thousandths spot, then you call it relief. This isn't even going to care about that. Fret jobs, my friends, and you're just doing them wrong. All it amounts to is, it's just like tape and drywall. You just feather it. Generally speaking, when you note a string at, pick a fret, at the 8th fret, it doesn't matter. The 9th fret is the one that's going to buzz. Generally speaking. I know there's exceptions. There can be a hump down here. I know that. We're not talking about exceptions. Generally speaking, when you note the 9th fret, the 10th fret's going to buzz. 10th fret, the 11th fret's going to buzz. All that matters on fret jobs is that the fret that's coming behind the fret you're noting is in a relative height, feathered out. You can feather them out on a curved fretboard. Believe it or not, and I know that's going to fly in the face of a whole bunch of you that says you have to level a fretboard first. But if you're using a 6-inch file, and that's the reason I use it, because I want to feather all of my frets. Now, conversely, take that long fret file, and now you've got a 10 thousandths relief in the middle. And most of you can't see that 10 thousandths relief, even though you may think you can, and you may think it's a lot. 10 thousandths is nothing. It's a 1/4 of a millimeter. So anyway, my point is that when you use those really long fret files, now you're spanning and you're sitting on the two ends. You're not even touching the middle. You're not getting your feathering action there. You're knocking down the two ends, and sure enough, after you do it long enough and you knock those ends down long enough, now you'll start touching the middle. You don't need to do that. Just take a shorter fret file. A good, it needs to be long enough, not too long. That's why I use 6 inches. 6 inches spans a lot of frets, but not too many frets. And I've had comments for years about this, but that's why I do what I do, and that's why it works so well, and that's why I can do fret jobs in half the time most people do fret jobs. It doesn't matter that there is a slight underbow. A slight underbow. Again, 40 thousandths is the worst I've ever seen. That's the one up on the shelf up there. And even that one, I could probably do a fret job like with this short fret file, and you wouldn't have a single buzz anywhere, because it's most important that the frets relative to the fret you're noting is level, not the fret at that end and the fret at this end when you're noting in the middle. I don't know if that makes sense to you. I don't know if I've made you mad, but I'm telling you black and white, that's a fact. All you got to do is go try it and you'll see what I'm telling you. And the math ought to tell you anyway. If you've only got 10 thousandths of relief, even if you don't take that out, if you're only filing 6 inches, you don't have hardly any relief there. You might not even have a thousandth of an inch. Does that make sense to you? I hope it does, because it sure ought to make sense to you. It's just common sense. Yes, I still agree with you that you should try to get it level first. So I'm not arguing that point. The fact that he didn't do that on the Haman, he learned a hard lesson, and he learned it in front of thousands of people. But he won't make that mistake again, I'm sure. But I still stand by what I've just told you about fret jobs. Most people don't think of it like that. They think that these numbers are huge, and they're not. They're tiny. They're just absolutely tiny numbers. Now, is that a good enough rant for you? I hope so. Now I'm going to look at the comments and go, oh no, I've really made everybody mad. Let me see here. Yeah, and the leveling beam with the Sharpie, all that, that's fine if that's what you need, prefer to do or need to do. If you have no experience at all and you need to do that, then fine, do that. If that's the way you prefer to do it, fine, do that. I got no problem with that, you understand. I'm not saying you're doing that part wrong. If you get them level, I don't care how you get them level. But the most important thing, whether you believe it or not, is that when I note the 7th fret, the 8th fret doesn't buzz. That's the most important thing. And that feathering action is what you really are trying to accomplish. It doesn't matter whether or not that fretboard is perfectly flat or not. It matters whether the frets buzz. That's what really matters. And if they don't buzz, then you've done a good job, especially if you've got really low action. Doug says, I bet you Caleb eventually takes over the shop. It wouldn't surprise me on that either. Let's see. What's the long-range plan for Caleb at Rosa String Works? Well, the long-range plan is to make it to lunchtime. That's about how far we plan. We don't have any long-range plans, unfortunately. Experience talks. Listen to Jerry. Yeah, I don't claim to know everything, guys, but the math ought to tell you what I just told you is right. I mean, if that doesn't tell you what's right, then you need to pull your head out of that really dark place you're keeping it, because you're not thinking straight. It's just that simple. Use a shorter fret file, and you'll see what I'm talking about. And you'll do your fret jobs 5 times faster than you're doing them now. And they'll be perfect. I guarantee you, you won't get them any better the way you're doing them now than you will if you use this. And the other thing about it, the crowning thing, if you have any brains at all, you keep your file moving side to side like this, and you keep that crown in there. You know, I don't file the whole thing flat. You couldn't possibly file it flat with a narrow 6-inch bastard mill file, by the way. That's what this is. It's called a bastard mill file. This one is a Nicholson made in the USA. And one more very, 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 very important thing about a file. And not very many people know this. There is no such thing as a flat file. And everybody goes, huh? They're all flat. No, I'm telling you right now. Get a brand new one out of the package, and I guarantee you, if you have a sharp enough eye, it is not flat. They all have a concave and a convex side, all of them. And it's because of their heat treating process or something like that, the way that the metal is worked. And some of them are much more pronounced than others. And when you do a fret job, you want to make sure that you've got the appropriate side down. And that is, you want the convex side down, the concave side up. And I'm exaggerating it, my hand being the file. You have to have it that way or you will not get good results. And I guarantee you, go out and look at your files. Every one of them has a slight curve to them. I'm done. I just love rants. They get my blood going. Richard says, if you get where you're going, it doesn't matter how you get there. Well, I agree with that a whole lot. You know, I always say there's 1,000 ways to do everything, and I still say that. Even about the fret jobs, there's a million ways you could accomplish the same thing. But my point is, there's so many of you think that you have to have it perfectly flat and level, and you don't. That's just black and white fact. And if you don't believe it, I'm sorry, you just don't understand math then. That's all I can tell you. I thought about him, and I have a man crush. Now, I don't know if you're talking about me or Caleb. I think it must be Caleb. I have a Chicken Lickin' just says, I have a 26-inch fret leveling file, or I have two 6-inch leveling files, and neither of them are flat. I've got to laugh. Well, I guarantee you they're not. That's just a black and white fact. Now, they're not very bowed, but if you look down them, they have a bow, and it's a very minor bow. And you make sure that the convex side is down. If you turn the other side down, you will not like me at all. Okay, let's see. I think I got through that and I can still breathe and my heart's not hurting too bad. A lot of you wanted to talk and wanted to see Caleb on screen. Caleb, would you like to come over here and be on screen for a minute? He probably doesn't want to be, but we'll get him over here anyway. Say hello, Caleb. Sue, you turned the light off. My wife just turned the light off. That helps. She's either running a skill saw in the background of my videos or running the lawnmower or turning the lights off.
I'm on camera somewhere.
All right, I'm moving over here. You're on camera. Tell them everything you know in 3 words or less.
Not very much.
Hey, that was pretty good. They want to know, how do you feel about working here?
Something new every day.
Something new every day, okay.
Yeah.
Do you like what you're doing?
Yes.
You can say more than just yes if you want to. Let's see. How long have you been here now? When did you start? Do you remember?
Early May.
Okay.
So November will be 6 months.
Okay, so it's not 6 months yet. By the way, let me tell you something. I can't stress this enough. Wait until you see a video coming out that Caleb did. He did it all by himself. I mean, I gave him direction, don't get me wrong, but he did all the work by himself. And it is a 19 20 something or
I
19?
think it's 1920. But it
Roughly
might be later.
1920, just roughly, don't know the exact date. Gibson A model mandolin. Wait till you see what Caleb did with that. Oh my gosh, it's almost like another chocolate. And I'm not kidding. If you saw the video series on chocolate, wait till you see what Caleb did with this mandolin. Oh my gosh, you will seriously not believe it. And that'll be coming up within a week, I would say, or within a few days to a week. You'll see that start of that video. You will be impressed. Well, Caleb, do you have any other words of wisdom you want to say to these folks?
No.
What you guys don't know about Caleb is he never talks. I mean, he talks on video just fine, but you can't hold a conversation with him.
I'm going to go back to work now.
He's going back to work. I'm seriously telling you, the boy never talks. I talk enough for both of us, so he doesn't have to. Good rant, Jerry. My boy, I love it. Okay, I need a Caleb shirt. Hi, Caleb. Caleb's been suppressed. Let's see. How much do I pay? Never enough. Let's see. Oh, yeah, for Halloween, I've had this suggestion already that I'm supposed to dress up with a blonde wig and a red bandana for Halloween. That would be funny. Is Caleb related to Willie Nelson? I don't think so. No. When's the next video on the new guitar build coming out? It'll be this evening or maybe even lunchtime today. I'll turn it loose. It's out there. I just haven't had a chance to review it yet. And I'm pretty sure, Melissa, she does a real good job. I don't find very many things anymore that I need to fix. So more than likely it'll go out yet today. Okay, I think I've covered almost everything on here. It's 8:37, so we're still got a little time here. I've got one more topic that I was going to talk about, and this is just kind of in general topic, and it's a topic about wood and why specific kinds of woods are used in specific kinds of places, and even in some cases on specific instruments versus other instruments, and why certain woods aren't used on certain instruments. So here we go. I'll try to explain this. Now, this is my take on it, you understand. Now, this is more opinion than it is black and white fact. But over so many years of doing this, your opinions almost become fact. And so I'm just going to share with you what I think about it. Some of you will think differently, and that's okay. I got no problem with that because there's always things I learn. I learn every single day on doing all this. Okay, so woods. A lot of people, and these are generally people that don't know much about instruments. They're like new viewers to the channel. They're just kind of, or maybe they just happen by. And, they'll ask a question like, why don't you use that really fancy wood on the top? Why do you put it on the back? You can't see it on the back. Well, you use soft woods on the tops of acoustic instruments. Softwoods are basically evergreen type woods, so redwood, spruce, even pine could be used, although pine is generally a little harder because even in softwoods there can be some really hard species, and some of the pines are very hard. If you're using one of the softer species of pines and you quarter sawed the wood, you could use that for a top. So western cedar is a good choice. Even our red cedar here in Missouri could make a good top if you could find enough of it without knots in it, and get it quarter sawn. It would make a really nice top, in fact. So the top needs to be a soft wood in general. So that's why you're not using those fancy curly woods on the tops, because generally speaking, you don't find that in the softwoods anyway. Now, you will find what they call bear claw in some of the spruces, and bear claw is just like maybe some medullary lines that raise, that go through the wood a little bit, and that can add a little bit to the look of the top. But most folks, honestly, especially the traditional type folks, they don't really want that in their top. They just want their top plain because that's what they're used to seeing. So generally speaking, your tops are going to be plain. They're going to be quarter sawed. The lines are going to go perfectly vertical up and down the length of the top. And it's going to be a softwood, meaning an evergreen type tree. Okay, the backs are all over the place. And there's a lot of reasons why certain kinds of woods are better than others for backs, and specifically on certain instruments. You've noticed that I use two primary woods for the backs. I use Padauk for my guitars, and I use curly maple for the backs of the mandolins. Now, in this particular mandolin, the newest mandolin that I'm building in that video series, I'm using quilted maple, which is, kind of like curly maple, except it is a little bit softer. But anyway, you do want to use a hardwood on the back, and the hardwood does a couple of things. On certain instruments, it acts like almost like a drum, some kind of a percussion instrument. The sound hits that back, bounces right back out. Now, especially on a mandolin, that's true. You want something hard, the sound hits the back, bounces it right back out. It doesn't vibrate as much as some other instruments like a guitar. Now, the guitar, the back vibrating actually does blend with the top vibrating and actually does create part of your sound. That's why you want to select a good vibratory wood on your back and your sides. You want something that vibrates well. Maple is not that good at vibrating. And you think, well, they put it on Stradivari violins, it must be really good. Different technology, and we're going to talk about that too. There's a different reason why that wood works on a violin and it doesn't work on a guitar. Now, I say that, and I have actually heard at least one really fine maple guitar that was up in Canada when I visited Victor, and I'm sorry I can't call names very well, but his relative or friend, I don't even recall that, built a maple guitar, and it was really nice, and it sounded really good. There's always exceptions, and the workmanship has a lot to do with it too, and how you process the wood. But in general, maple doesn't really ring and doesn't really vibrate all that well. In general, you pick up a maple board, you tap on it, you won't hear the same thing that you hear when you pick up a Padauk board and tap on it. Let me just try this. Here is a Padauk board. Now this is a board. This is not a thin piece. This is a thick board. Now it's not that long. It's maybe 24 inches long, if that. And I'm going to just try this. I don't even know what this is going to turn out like, but listen to this. Wow. Can you hear that? It rings like a bell, like a wind chime. I can hear it that long. That long. Now, let's take a piece of maple. Unfortunately, this piece of maple is a match set aside, so it's taped together here. If I can get it apart. This isn't quite exactly the same size, but it's close. This is probably 20 inches long, so it's a few inches shorter. Probably mass-wise, it's about the same mass, so it's a fairly good comparison. Not a perfect comparison, because this one is also quarter sawn, and so therefore it's thinner on the edge and stuff. But still, if it's going to vibrate, this should vibrate. I guarantee you, it will not vibrate like that one did. It'll have some vibration and some tone, but not like that. I mean, like it's almost no sustain. It's like that quick. I mean, it's like there's almost no sustain at all. Yeah, it's got a tone, a little bit of a tone. But now, which would you rather build a guitar out of? Do you want one that's going to vibrate and ring and work with the sound that's coming through that guitar and blend and give you that woody sound? Or do you want this sound? This isn't going to vibrate. No matter what anybody tells you, this isn't going to vibrate on a guitar like that other stuff does. Okay, so why does it work on a violin? Well, it's a different technology altogether. The violin has that long bow, and that bow just keeps, and it sends that vibration through the whole instrument. You also have a sound post that connects the top to the back that also helps transfer the vibration to the back. It's a smaller air cavity also. But that bow action has a lot to do with that vibration getting into the maple when you just pick it like on a mandolin. Now keep in mind, a mandolin and a violin are tuned exactly the same. But on a mandolin, it's a different technology. You're picking it and the sound hits that back and bounces right back out. Completely different technology. So you need to think about the way your wood is going to be used when you select it, and then you need to select it appropriately. People come to me all the time and say, I want to make a guitar out of oak. Well, pick it up, hold it like this, and go like that and see what you think. I guarantee you won't think much of it. It just doesn't have much of a ring. And it's crazy heavy. For some reason, oak's really heavy. And it's really porous. It's got almost no redeeming quality for a musical instrument. I mean, like there's nothing there that makes any sense to use oak. Okay? I mean, I'm just telling you straight up and down. Pick up your board, tap on it. There's an art to holding it, by the way. Try to be as unintrusive as you can about how you hold it. Just barely have it between your fingers. Try to let it kind of hang down like a bell and then tap on it and see if you hear anything. And if you don't hear anything, then chances are it's not a good choice for making an instrument. Now, having said that, the technology is a little different for a mandolin and a violin than it is for a guitar, as I think you may understand now. You're plucking the mandolin, it bounces the sound out, you're bowing the violin, and it vibrates that whole thing because of that bowing action. Totally different technology than a guitar. Guitar is kind of a blend of both of them. The guitar, because of the bigger body space, because of the longer string length, you get a lot more vibration going on, and it sends it through that whole body. So therefore, you want to pick a wood that can handle that vibration and add to your sound. It is not rocket science. There's no science to this at all. It's just simple common sense. There's two things that make a noise on your guitar. Two things. One of them is your strings, which is metal, and the other one is your wood. Okay? What do you want to hear? Do you want to hear that metallic sound? And that's why a lot of instruments sound tinny, metallic, because they're not vibrating the rest of the instrument. You want to hear that woody blend with that metal, and that's when you get that good sound. That's all I can tell you. I'm not going to show it to you, but I'll play it off camera. I'll get my head over here. Listen to the sustain. Just keeps going. That's because that wood vibrates. By the way, the California guitar, and as I mentioned, we'll put that next video out yet today. But that guitar is basically finished. I'm waiting on the customer. He's a private pilot, and I believe he's going to fly in, and he's actually going to stay here at our retreat. And I think he's doing that the first week of November, something like that. Okay. Well, I think my rant is over about the types of wood and why you use them, where you use them. I'll add a couple of key points. You've seen me get all uptight whenever I look inside the guitar, and in the most key location, they put plywood. That's the bridge plate. Why would you do that? That's where all the action is. That's where everything that counts happens. Is right there. That's your connection to your sound. And they put a piece of plywood there. Pick up a piece of plywood in the hardware store and tap on it the next time you're in there. See how much tone you get out of that. It just makes no sense at all. Yeah, it's strong, and that's why they do it. They think that that's going to, be a stronger bridge plate. But the truth is, plywood is not very strong on its flat side. Or, I'm trying to think of the right word there, stiff. It's not very stiff on its flat side. It's strong, but it's not stiff. And it bends like this. So plywood pulls up. So what they thought they were fixing, they created more problem than they fixed. What you really want if you're building a guitar, what you really want for that bridge plate is either a piece of that Padauk that I showed you or some other really quality wood. Rosewood, even ebony would be fine. Just any high quality hardwood would be the thing to put in that bridge plate. Why they ever thought plywood would be a good idea was just, I'd fire the guy that thought of it. I mean, I seriously would. I would just say, look, if you don't know any better than that, you're out of here. See ya. And I would have just sent him down the road. So there's key things that you put in key places. Put a good wood there. Don't pick up some scrap piece of wood off the shelf and put it there. Also, the same way with your bridge. Why would you want to put some piece of junk wood there? I've seen all kinds of just no-name kinds of woods used for bridges. Most of the time they don't hold up, and most of the time, they pull loose and they torque and they distort and bend. Why would you do that? Use a good quality wood there too. A good quarter sawn piece of wood there would be better because that'll keep your top flat also. Okay. I do think I'm done now. Let's see. Read some comments here. Minim Guitars. Somebody said, well, he's talking to someone else about an opinion. Plywood rules. Nope, not really. The Padauk really rules. Awesome stuff. Yes, it does. It's hard to beat. I mean, I'm not saying it's better than rosewood. I really am not saying that at all. The reason to be perfectly truthful, the reason I started with Padauk was it was available at the hardwood lumber store that I was buying wood from. And I went around and found all the quarter sawn wood that they had, and I pick it up and I tap on it, and the Padauk just rang out better than anything else that was in the store. So I started building my first guitar with Padauk, and I haven't looked back because I've been impressed with the sound of it. I mean, it's good stuff. But I'm not saying, I just want to be clear, I'm not saying it's better than rosewood or anything else, because rosewood is very good, for a back and side. So is mahogany if you get the right piece. Now, the odd thing about mahogany is that it's a softer hardwood. It's considered a hardwood, but it's one of the softer hardwoods. And your tones and your vibrations are much softer. It does carry a tone when you tap on it, so it's a good choice. Obviously, it's a good choice because they make a lot of very nice guitars with mahogany, but it's not the sound that I personally like to hear. It's a little too weak for me. I like a little more punch. I like a little more volume, a little more sustain, and I think I get that better with a little harder wood, as long as the wood vibrates. Would Padauk work on a mandolin? Yes, I believe Padauk would work on a mandolin. Almost any real hard wood would work on a mandolin. And I say that, I would still don't think I would use oak. I still don't think I'd use oak. I think oak's one of the poorest choices you can make at all for an instrument, for a lot of reasons. But almost any good, especially tight-grained hardwood, but even Padauk is not that tight a grain, but I think almost any hardwood would work for a mandolin back. Because it's a different technology on a mandolin. It's mostly bouncing the sound back out. Don't get me wrong, a lot of people will take exception that I'm saying the mandolin doesn't vibrate. It does, and it does have sustain, and it does do a little bit like, it's kind of it's a hybrid between a guitar and a violin. It's in the middle there, and it does have a little bit of both of their properties, but you know, it for the most part, it's bounced the sound back out. That's what it mostly does. I love that you stand up for Caleb. Well, you know, I only stand up for folks that deserve it. You know, he deserves it. There's no question about it. So there you go. Let's see. There's a lot of discussions going on in the background, it looks like, between you folks, which is perfectly fine. Hickory is better for smoking ribs. Yes, I agree with that one. I would say hickory would be another one that I would not be impressed with on an instrument, though I could be proven wrong, but I would not think that's a good choice at all. And oak and hickory, neither one I would think would be a very good choice at all. But you'd have to cut your board, tap on it, and see what you think. Let's see. Compensated nut. Yeah, you know, I'm not a fan of that. I can see your discussions going on there, but I am not a fan of that. And the main reason I'm not a fan of that is because all of the math is started at the nut, and it works back from there. When you start compensating the nut, then you're messing up all the math in between there. And I know it kind of averages it out, but it doesn't make it right. You can make it 100% right without compensating a nut if you do the intonation correctly on a correctly slotted fretboard. So anyway, I think I show you on the video, and if you don't believe that, on this guitar that's right here, I'm pretty sure I show you in the video when I get it strung up how perfectly it's intonated and how perfectly the tuner sits right dead center on every single string. And if you intonate them perfectly, then you don't need to compensate a nut at all. And intonation is where it's at. The compensated stuff is, and for my 2 cents, it's at the saddle, not at the nut. And I know that some of you disagree with that, and that's okay. Feel free to disagree. If you can accomplish the same thing, if you can accomplish what you're looking for by compensating the nut, go ahead and do it. You will not see me doing that. Can I ask about super glue? That when I wipe it with paper, I don't get stuck. Yeah. Well, you got to do it really quick, number one. I think there's kind of a technique to all of this stuff. You know, like for instance, with super glue, you know, a lot of people say don't use the accelerator because it turns it white. If you put the super glue on and you wait about 5 to 10 seconds, roughly about 10 seconds, I would say, and then you spritz it with the accelerator, it won't turn white. Check the tuning on the fretted strings, you will get a shock. Yes, I did. And you will be surprised that I show you in my video that you can note this guitar just about anywhere you want to note it, and it is perfect. There's no need to compensate the nut at all. Let's see. What woods are good for neck? Is maple used because it doesn't ring? Well, on necks, again, it affects your sound, but it's not, the sound isn't the most important thing on a neck. Obviously, strength is probably your most important consideration, which is why I have always laminated my necks. Now here I go back to plywood, see, because basically I'm making a plywood neck. And you hear me knock plywood all the time. But I am making a plywood neck because plywood is very strong on its edge. It's very stiff on its edge. And yet I make them decorative. Without showing you the guitar, I can show you the neck. And you can see there that it's a decorative look and it's a plywood look, and it's very, very, very strong. So that's why for necks, you want to use a good hardwood, and you want to do whatever you can to make it as strong as possible. And for me, that would be quarter sawn through, perpendicular to your fretboard. So quarter sawn this way with your fretboard laying this way. And if you got your grain lines going this way, that will be stronger than if your grain lines are flat like this, because flat boards will always do this. When you turn them up on edge like that, they don't do that. So anyway, that's about all the time we've got today. We're going to have to get off here. I'm just looking to see if there's any last second questions. Well, I don't see anything there. I'm sure there's something there, but I'm a slow reader and I can't read them all that fast. So thank you all for tuning in this morning. I hope I didn't make too many of you mad, but I hope I did make you think, especially about the fret jobs, because the numbers are different than most people think. They think their numbers are much bigger than they are. They're tiny numbers. See you next time. Next Friday, we'll be back here, same time, same place.